In today's video, I am going to be talking about zone defenses with youth basketball teams, some of the mistakes that coaches make, and of course what players make while on the court while running a zone with a young player. Really quickly, make sure to go check out my complete guide to the 5-out offense. It's a very simple offense that you can run with teams of all ages. Okay, so over this a couple of weekends ago with my U11 team, a team that we were playing against, U11 means basically 10-year-olds are playing, and the team that we were playing was running a 1-2-2 zone where this player up top generally is the top runner, and player 5 generally covers this area, player 2 covers this area, player 4 covers here, and player 3 covers here. However, if the ball, for example, is on this side, then the zone kind of works out to move like this. Or at least that's where it should be at. And it basically just moves back and forth at the very basic level. However, the players who were running the zone were very stagnant. So what that means is they were not moving. And my team, we run the 5-out offense and we bring the ball up the middle when we're not being pressured. When we're being pressured, we're always trying to force it up middle because you never want to be along the sidelines, but it doesn't matter. Either way, in the half-court set, as soon as we made that first pass and cut, this player never moved. And I just thought, and I was watching, and my players were watching as well, obviously, but we made that first cut, and none of these players moved. So right away I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're playing a zone. Maybe this guy was just covering the cut man, wasn't too worried about a three-point shot, whatever. So then player 2 passed to player 5. He made his cut, and none of these players were moving at all. They were just guarding a zone and literally guarding their spot. At this time, my player 5 is a great ball handler. He's my tallest player, and he decided to drive towards the basket, and none of the players moved. He got a wide open layup. And that is one of the first and most biggest mistakes when coaches run a zone defense with a young team. And that big mistake is they'll explain to their player, this is your zone, you're guarding your zone, but then the player just doesn't move. And we ended up getting a massive lead at the beginning of the game to a point where it just got ridiculous at 12-0 within a few minutes. It was like within 2 minutes we were up 12-0. So then because I also run a 4-out offense, we started running when we were about 4 or 6-0 at that point, somewhere around there, we started running a play that I call high, which is a 4-out play. And basically, at this point, we have player 1 dribble towards the side, player 3 moves down, player 5 moves up, because we called 4 high for our big man. We had, again, this guy was doing his job, he was chasing, but we then had player 1 pass to player 5, and he had literally a wide open lane to the basket. And we ran this a few times. I think we ran it 2, maybe 3 times, and it was just basically an easy lane right down the middle. Eventually, they started having these guys close, but then we've got some pretty good shooters. We'd kick it out for a mid-range shot. So it wasn't a very effective zone. The other team then called a timeout. And I knew exactly one of 2 things that coach was about to do. If that coach was, of course, me, I would be switching to a man, and of course, then basically picking up a man on defense, and then the other team has to change their strategy up. But this coach decided to stick with his 1-2-2. In fact, he actually stayed with the 1-2-2 the entire game, and he then instructed, and I know he instructed his team to do this because they started doing it right after the timeout, which is they started jamming the high post with both players. Now, this guy is quite tall for a 10-year-old. He's about 5'5", so yes, he would probably need 2 players on him in the high post. However, now this is leaving players wide open still, and we were still able to get that ball to other players, drive, and then at this point, they were starting to collapse, kick out, swing, which is another 5-out offense style that I like to run, but we were doing it with a guy in the high post. And we were just continuing to basically pass, cut, kick, cut, or anything. Basically, we were moving the ball around as much as we could. Now, in my opinion, at the 10-year-old level, yes, they can run zones. However, you have to run the zone effectively for it to work. One of the best ways to teach a zone is to actually teach man-to-man defense first. Because when you're teaching man-to-man defense, you're actually basically teaching a zone as well, if you're doing it properly. For example, here we have a 5-out, and yes, this looks like a 1-2-2, but whatever. You've got man on. This guy is 2 big steps away because, of course, he's 1 big step away because he is 1 pass away. These guys are 2 big steps away because they are 2 passes away. Now, when this ball gets swung around, this guy's going to be 1 pass away. This is going to be man on. This is 1 pass away. This is 2 steps away. This is now, in my opinion, if you're allowed to run a zone defense in your league, then this guy can sit his butt in the key while these guys are playing with the basketball. Because the idea here is he is the help side, which means that if player 4 was to drive to the rim, we would then have player 5 come over and cut off that drive. Player 3 sinks down, player 1 sinks down. Now, player 3 has to watch player 5 and player 3. Player 1 has to watch player 3 and player 1, so that if this ball gets passed out, then these 2 players will be able to intercept that ball. Or if a player decides to cut, then these players can cut off that backdoor cut so that player 4 can't pass him that ball. When this ball gets drove to the basket, let's say he kicks it out and passes it to player 1. Just as an example, let's say that pass was open. Then these 3 players have to scramble, and of course at different levels, at different age groups, you can have different rules, but in my opinion, at the advanced level, player 5 should at least go out and recover, or at least player 5 can then cover here, or player 3 can go back, player 5 can go back, something like that. Or you can have player 4 go out and guard here. Player 5 stays on player 4 now, depending on the situation and your team and the level your team is, of course, playing at. If you're very basic, then you can have player 5 return to his man and all is well. But the one thing that you don't want to see have happen is when this man is driving, player 2 to come in. We don't want that. That is a no-no because, of course, this now leaves a wide open 3-point shot. And if your team is like mine, most of my team can hit a 3-point shot that's wide open very easily, even though they are only 10 years old. So now, by them understanding, hey, I need to drop back in my man-to-man defense, I am now essentially guarding a zone while in man, because now I have to be able to focus on 2 guys out here plus the ball. I'm now guarding a zone, even though I'm playing man-to-man defense. And by them understanding how to run a man-to-man defense like this, they'll be able to understand a zone defense a lot more and a lot better, and they'll be able to move inside that zone. So in my opinion, young players should learn how to play a man-to-man defense first, and then a zone. Also, my opinion, you should be able to run both. If your league allows it, which my league that we run in, Ontario Basketball League, as well as the Canadian Basketball League, both of those leagues allow zone defenses at that age of 10. So that means that I like to go between man and zone so that I can throw off other teams. Because as we all know, you need different plays for both man and zone. You can't usually run the same plays for both. Usually what happens is if we're running a man-to-man defense one shift, next shift I go to a zone. Now their offense gets stagnated for maybe a minute or 2 minutes, depending on the level that we're playing against. And then we can get maybe some quick, easy baskets off of the turnovers. And then we'll switch back into a man, again, to mess them up. And if you can continue to switch between them, you could be very successful. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed. Make sure to go check out my complete guide to the 5-out offense down below, but also my unbeatable basketball zone defense book down there as well. I hope that you've enjoyed. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video.